be really surprised at how much red tape is connected to that case of beer you're picking up for the weekend. Liquor laws in Canada are outright absurd and in some cases protectionist and unconstitutional. And the rules are different depending on which province you live in. For instance, if you live in New Brunswick, there are restrictions on how much liquor you can bring back into the province. Some consumers tend to drive to Quebec, where booze is so much cheaper, but if they're caught, they're subject to fines. In fact, Gerard Como has been caught up in a legal battle with the province for just that reason. He brought 14 cases of beer into New Brunswick from Quebec, where the limitations are 12 pints. He received a $292 fine, which he didn't pay, which in turn gave him the opportunity to challenge the law in court. And then there's Alberta, where importers and breweries outside of Alberta, Saskatchewan, and British Columbia are in a legal battle with the NDP government for the massive taxes that they've implemented on what are deemed foreign products, some of which are actually produced right here in our own country. Some breweries and importers face tax increases of up to $1.20 a litre overnight. Both of these cases tie back to Section 121 in the Constitution, which basically states that goods should be free of trade barriers. Actually, this was considered to be one of the advantages of uniting as a country, and it also means that these liquor laws are unconstitutional. But then in 1921, the Gold Seal case went to the Supreme Court of Canada, where it was ruled that only customs duties on interprovincial trade were prohibited. And now courts tend to follow the ruling in that particular case. So we have all these laws and red tape to deal with as a result. And it's not just court cases that are causing problems. Conservative Member of Parliament Dan Albus was involved with the Free My Grapes campaign and championed Bill C-311, which ultimately allowed for the shipment of wine and eventually other alcohol for personal use under federal law. But in all reality, the provinces still have direct control when it comes to liquor laws. What Bill C-311 attempted to do was take that extra federal government layer on booze laws away. But when the provinces still have control, there's not much that can be done. It's a really complicated topic, and the government can't do anything permanent about it. So I talked to Derek Frum at the Canadian Constitution Foundation, a lawyer that's an expert on the Constitution. This is what he had to say.
This is very interesting because there's been some push, both from politicians and the media, to have a political solution to this problem. That we need to just amend the laws or negotiate between the provinces to come to an agreed solution here. And to me, I find that unsatisfactory. A political solution is not the answer to the problem of trade barriers between the provinces, because these sorts of solutions have an expiry date, and that expiry date is every election cycle. So let's say the government now, whatever government it happens to be in any particular province or federally, decides that we're free traders and we're going to tear down barriers. And so they start repealing laws or changing laws to make it more free. Well, all it takes is another election where you have a government with a different point of view, that they don't like free trade, and they'll start building up those barriers again. And so the political solution only ever lasts until the next election cycle. Now, if there's a constitutional decision from the courts, that will prevent the government, prohibit the government from enacting laws that violate the Constitution. And that, to me, is the only viable long-term solution where we can ensure that the rights of Canadians are protected and that consumers and innovative producers alike have the benefit of access to the Canadian market rather than having to jump through all sorts of hoops to be able to meet different sorts of restrictions on getting access to other provincial markets. So the political solution is only ever temporary and can be undone by the next government, whereas a constitutional decision is much stronger and longer lasting and has a far greater bite than the political solution does.
I mentioned Gerard Como's case, and it seems as though the direction it's headed is toward the Supreme Court. After 3 years of being tied up in the court system, he got a decision in his favor. However, the province of New Brunswick has appealed. Steam Whistle, a brewing company based in Ontario, has also challenged the Alberta NDP, and they've received an injunction on the taxes. They'll be heading back to court in July in an attempt to get the government to backtrack on the hefty tax that was placed upon breweries and importers overnight. But as Derek mentioned, there's really not much that can be done until actual laws completely change and these issues are out of the hands of the government. For the Rebel.media, I'm Holly Nicholas.
Thanks for watching. Click here to never miss a Rebel update. Want even more of the Rebel? Well, click here to become a premium member.